I love movies. Gosh, I love movies. Here we go.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Grindhaus podcast with Dave and Matt. Take 2. If you guys are following me on social media, you'll know that we recorded this whole podcast yesterday. And, Skynet once again attacked us. And so we're re-recording today. So I apologize for the continual late uploadings of the podcast, but we're doing the best we can with what we have. How are things going over
in the form of a dusty old overheating MacBook.
We don't know that's what happened. We have no idea why that. Basically, I lost all of my audio, which is the most important part of the show, clearly. So
it's pretty important if you're doing a podcast that you get that audio, even if you do have some sort of YouTube version of it that you've been doing recently. You're still going to want the core audience to get their audio. So
yeah.
So hopefully that high tech Skynet dust that has filled Dave's MacBook is not gonna delete the audio again today.
Hey guys, this is Dave for a quick interruption. In spite of our best efforts, this show was in fact affected by Skynet, and so you'll notice as you listen to the recording that sometimes my audio changes from sounding like this to sounding like I'm in the middle of a forest surrounded by crickets and a fireplace. And that's because in order to not have to record this show for a third time and to get you guys an episode that we're really happy with, we decided to use some scratch track that we got from our Oculus VR headset. So we hope you guys enjoy it, and we thank you guys for bearing with us. And once again, apologies for the technical issues. Hope you guys enjoy the episode.
I think
hopefully
no,
not.
You something about, you said it was about 5 years old now and you've never cleaned it. So I do know what it looks like inside. I've got enough experience with this to know.
Maybe I'll go buy some can of compressed air.
It'd be a start. Yeah.
How are things in Tejas these days, Matt?
Things are good. We're still, it's a weird environment right now because half the state is living free and loving life. At least at the moment, they're out there. They don't need masks anymore. Their freedoms are no longer inhibited. They've gotten the evil government off their back, and they're just doing what they want. And then the other half of us is just kind of sitting at home watching and going like, okay, what the hell's this going to lead to? Because
1,000 new cases a day.
We're at we've broken some records now daily. So yeah, and I think I hope it's not 1,000 a day. I don't think it is, but we've broken some records daily since we've just gone full, jump in without even dipping a toe. We're just going wild out here in Texas. So
it's crazy. If you saw any of those protests that were, springing up all over the place, including California.
Yeah.
Like, did you see anyone request the argument that they had to be let out of quarantine and what have you? Like, was there anyone that you saw that was like, I got to be let out of quarantine because I want to do this cool one-act play? Or like, I got to be let out of quarantine because I got a band and we're playing music? Or I got to be let out of quarantine so I can make this cool artistic film that's really speak to this generation. Did you see any of that?
No, I mean, I didn't really see... I don't really know a lot of people's motivations. I did see something about a woman that opened up her gym. Gyms are supposed to be a place where you go to get healthy, but she was thinking, well, maybe we have a gym where you get sick, so let's open it up. But please shut that down. But mostly, most people have been pretty vague. They're just kind of like, I want my rights, and I want my freedom.
Baskin-Robbins. And really, it seems like everyone was clamoring to get back to really crappy chain restaurants.
Maybe the owners were. I don't know about the employees of that.
Oh, no, I saw people. But, we'll stay safe.
Yes.
I noticed that you brought some of your facial hair back, albeit within mask regulation.
Well, yeah. That's what I've been telling you. This because we actually finally face chatted. What do you call it? It's face chat, right? I don't know. The FaceTime. That's the Apple one. We do the
right.
Facebook one.
Oh yeah.
Face
chat.
Messenger. face messenger. We face messengered each other, and you got to see that this mustache on my avatar is really happening in real life too. Because I shaved off completely, and then I thought, you know what, you need a little something. You need something, So I started with the cop mustache, but then I grew out the soul patch, and now I've got what I call a healthy painter's mustache going.
I like
pretty
it.
Happy with it.
Sort of adds to the overall artistic look.
Yes, it goes good with sunglasses and that above the waist denim that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago. It's
I think. That's right. You should post a photo on our social media and you in a full Canadian tuxedo with your painter's goatee and some cool shades.
Now, it's not a goatee. Now, goatees are for people from the future with bald heads, and I'm not one of them. Or Satanists.
Wait, what?
Goatees. It's
people from the future?
Yeah.
Oh, like evil? Like you mean like the evil versions of you?
No. Like I think that like people from the future have like, remember that when we used to work at the coffee shop and there'd be all those guys with like bald head, glasses, goatee, and I would always call them future mans.
Dude, those were Scientologists.
Oh, my hand is freaking out. Anyway, those are that they could have been. Were they?
No.
They
were.
Like you spoke with them and they were Scientologists.
Yeah.
Well,
remember? Okay, so a little bit of a story. Matt and I years ago used to work at a Barnes and Noble, slinging coffee, and there used to be these people from the history. It was right across from the University of Texas. Stop fussing with your hands. Pay attention to the podcast.
I think it's the sunlight coming through. Hold on a second.
All right.
I'm gonna shut the
Tell
blinds.
my cool story.
Yeah,
shut the blinds.
This is a good story. I'll be right back.
So years ago, Matt and I used to work at a Barnes & Noble slinging coffee right across from the University of Texas. And we used to have these people that would come in, including, we had a lot of regulars, I guess is what I'm saying, and including one Mike Judge. Remember Mike Judge used to come in all the time?
Of course, that was so cool.
Creator of Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill and what was the other? The Office Space?
Yes, creator of many woozy ladies when he would come in. I'll tell you what, you see you've seen him in Office Space, you've seen him in Extract, and he doesn't look like much, but man, when he comes in, he's a fit guy, carries a vanity cane, always dresses really nice. I mean,
surfer dude.
The girls would go nuts when Mike Judge came in the store.
That's right. But who also came in the store were these people who, I guess, as you would say, Matt, kind of looked like they were from the future.
Yes.
Like they had like a very modern, but like very modern, like futurist modern sort of arty look.
Bald head.
Like people who are really into steampunk probably kind of dress like this also.
No, I'm not. Those aren't the future mans. The future man, it's bald head, goatee, glasses, and then a fleece jacket from North Face. That's the future mans.
Well, those was long story short, those ended up being Scientologists, and one of our coworkers actually got recruited for a little while because he was interested in a girl.
Oh,
and so he got himself. Remember that? Who was
John,
Jeremiah? Maybe
no, his name was John something. Who's the guy? The guy that from the Roanoke colony. Because that
John
was
Smith?
his. Yeah, it was John Smith.
That was his name.
Yeah, it was. And God, I remember that. I hadn't worked there in about 6 months, and I went down there to get some food and do some shopping, hit up the Urban Outfitters, get something cool from a date, and fucking John comes up handing me some Scientology literature, tells me it's all about a girl and everything. I guess there's lots of reasons to join. Career, you might want to consider for your own career at some point, Dave. Yeah. But he joined for a girl.
Was this, now you say you hadn't been there in 6 months. Was this the time that you got fired for making rat armor?
No, I didn't get fired for that. That was awesome, though. I did get reprimanded for it. Yeah. No, it wasn't really armor. It was I used a bunch of those, those little sleeves that they put over the coffee cups. I made some kind of like a musketeer outfit for a stuffed rat. It looked awesome.
Oh, it's a stuffed rat.
It wasn't a real rat. It's health code, man. No way.
I thought you had like a rat at home. I don't remember this story that well.
Yeah.
I thought you had like a rat at home. And you were like, that rat needs a musketeer outfit. So you like appropriated some coffee sleeves.
No.
And you decided to make a musketeer outfit.
the time I almost got fired, which was super weird because we had also, before we worked together at the cafe in Austin, we worked together at the cafe in Corpus Christi.
That's right.
And I left to come up here maybe like a year before you did or something. I can't remember. It was pretty close though. And they had called me into the office and they said, "Tell me about the gift cards," because they believed that I had taken 256 gift cards and put 1 penny on each one. And I'm like, "What are you even talking about?" And it turned out that it was a guy in Corpus that did it, but we looked a little bit similar. And customers would all, like it was one of those kind of things where I'd be working and a customer would say like, "Hey, weren't you here this morning?" And I'd be like, "Nah, it's the other guy." It was that kind of thing. But he was the one that did this. He was planning to bring a stack of 250 gift cards to Austin and buy a cup of coffee from me with that 1 cent gift card prank. He thought that would be very funny. And I guess that those gift cards cost like a few bucks for each one that they
was there a minimum that you had to put on them?
I don't apparently not. But yeah, he
technically if he purchased them,
I mean, it's his prerogative on how much he wants to load it for, right?
Right, yeah. But yeah, so here we were, like I hadn't been there in months, and when someone asked, when the store supervisor, his director or whatever asked, who did the gift card thing, they did that the old confusion and said my name instead of his, even though I hadn't been there in forever. So he immediately called Austin and told my store director what I had done. And I was so confused, but I almost got fired for that. Yeah.
Well, no one is going to confuse you now because you've got a cool painter's follicle arrangement on your face.
Well
makes
put.
You stand out. And the reason you showed it to us is because we're part of a Friday sort of weekly Facebook chat while we watch Joe Bob Briggs' The Last Drive-In.
Yeah, we have a little group thing going, at least for this season. We've started a little,
Us and your beautiful wife and Mark from the Graveyard podcast.
Grave Talk podcast.
Grave Talk podcast.
Yeah, good podcast. Yeah, man.
Yeah, check that one out as well.
Yeah.
And so I don't always join in, but I did this week. And we thought it would be kind of fun to talk about this episode in particular for a few reasons. Initially, I kind of wanted to talk about it because there was a lot of controversy on the interwebs. The Twitterverse was at each other's throats. And Matt, you, much more wisely than I, have avoided being on Twitter much at all. So you are spared from all this, correct?
That's right. I don't really go on Twitter. I made an account years ago, and I just kind of forgot about it.
One day you're going to go on there, you're just going to see like 50 tweets from me waving at you.
Is that there for real, or are you saying you plan to do that?
No, like every once in a while I just wave at your handle.
It's like you click a wave button and it just says
not like an emoji thing,
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Thanks for keeping it live, man.
Keeping it updated. I want to make sure that if you ever come back, you're welcomed.
Yeah.
But in spite of you not being on Twitter, do you have some semblance of kind of what happened? I don't want to spend too much time on it because I think there's far more interesting stuff to talk about on the show itself. But it's an elephant in the room that we might as well address at the top.
You were telling me about it yesterday, and like basically Joe Bob Briggs went way outside of his lane, and a while back with an article talking about some of the shortcomings of the acronym of the LGBTQ was it IA plus community? A plus, yeah. I don't always get it right. I mean, I understand what he was trying to say of like, oh, it's getting longer, and I do know that like when conservatives want to talk about that, they often will parody it by adding extra letters and stuff. But I know that it has a purpose, especially in legal documents and all kinds of things that you need things like that. You need identifiers like that. So I don't know why he felt the need to like I said, go so far outside of his lane and give Joe Bob's hot take on it. But that is something like that, right? That's basically what he did. And
I think that's a fair summary of it. I think the terminology outside of his lane is probably the best way to describe it, because I didn't find anything particularly malicious about it. But I understand that maybe that's not the right voice, and that maybe there's probably just not a way to say it from his perspective that is really going to be embrace. That being said, as things happen on Twitter, they a lot of emotions were running high, and people on both sides of the aisle, so to speak, really some engaged in meaningful discourse, and others resorted in pretty lackluster and vile language being hurled at one another.
I've heard people get pretty rude there on the Twitter. They take the gloves off and really claw at you, and I've heard it gets pretty heated.
Or, whoa, what's going on with your crazy hands there?
I don't know. If I do something weird, if I do something weird, just ignore it. I was just checking the power level on my headset, making sure I don't have to plug in.
Okay, fair enough. Well, but what makes, I think, Twitter prone to sort of overreaction is that you're only allowed 140 characters, so you really only even have the physical ability to do quote unquote hot takes, and there's a sense of anonymity there.
Anonymity, yes.
That provides a veil of protection to say kind of whatever you want without consequence, which of course is ironic because the moment you say something, there are, at least in some instances, consequences. We talked about James Gunn has been fired for things that he did in the past, private things.
That's right.
That people found unsavory and that cost him his job. I have really strong feelings about things that you do in the past affecting your. Like I'm not a big believer that businesses should regulate morality.
Like,
who the fuck is Disney to regulate what I do in my private time?
Sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But I will say this: in the end, several articles have come out. I think a lot of the articles really failed to tell the entire story. But much like Joe Bob's the articles that Joe Bob's read, I think that the intent came from a good place, even if the execution was poor. And if you want to really like a take that mirrors mine, there's a YouTube channel called Michael Keene, Keene. Michael Keene is on the Twitter, and he's on YouTube, and he did about like a 15-minute or 10-minute sort of breakdown of everything. And I think it's really good. It really was even keeled and had context and perspective and really tried to view both sides of it. And so if you want to catch up, there it is. I think that's the one that you should really read. And then in the end, in spite of how poorly it may have sort of escalated to, in the end, Joe Bob has opened his DMs to people to reach out to him to talk.
There you go.
He wants people to feel like they belong and they've been heard. And so I don't know what more you can ask. If you see some assholes still pushing the envelope for canceling or whatever, fuck them. You don't need that kind of negative influence in horror.
Yeah, canceling is the canceling thing. That is a harmful. That trend needs to stop. It's too many people too eager to do that whole thing.
But you know what?
Yeah.
On the other side, if you see some Joe Bob defenders hurling vitriol and vulgar terms and bigoted terms, fuck those people too.
Absolutely.
We don't need negativity.
Oh yeah.
Horror and movies and art is inclusive of everyone. But if you're an asshole, you might be shown the door. So just don't be an asshole.
So sometimes I was going to say, is there a chance that, or did you see anything that might make you think this, that like, cause I know there have been times in the past, like for example, there was a thing with a trailer for the new Doom game where they were in it? No, for the game, but they were showing some clips from the game in which the demons are referred to in culturally sensitive ways, saying they would prefer to be called mortally challenged, and it was a kind of a spoof on like corporate cultural sensibility that's not actually helpful, that's more corporate. But I did notice like a big part of this kind of, the guys that are the anti-SJW people, that like they seem to they found a few people saying, the new Doom trailer makes fun of cultural sensibility, and kind of saying we don't agree, they shouldn't be doing that basically. And they were able to find like a few people who complained about this trailer and blow it up into, the SJW community is trying to go against Doom. And it went on, and it still comes around every once in a while. People, hey, you remember when the SJWs tried to stop Doom from getting made? And you're like, what? And so sometimes I have noticed that the kind of anti-community will blow stuff up. Like maybe a few people did complain about Joe Bob, but then these other guys caught wind that they had a little, a torch to carry and a flag to get behind. We got to save Joe Bob, and they may have made it seem like a bigger thing than it actually was.
Honestly, I think that applies to both sides. But yes, certainly that. I think there were about a handful of writers, film writers, and if you've listened to this show or followed my Twitter, you know about my love-hate relationship with film writers. But like there were a handful of writers who sort of carried the torch. And in fairness, the initial person who wrote an article for Fangoria, you can read that too, although I do think it's a little one-sided still.
Okay.
She did apologize to me actually directly on Twitter. When I kind of called out, I hate the term called out. I responded that this was a good article, but it missed an opportunity for both sides to assume accountability. And she messaged me directly, and she said that she realized that she used some really poor judgment in how she handled this. She was upset, and she apologized to me. Do I think I'm the one who needs to be apologized to? No. But do I think it at least maybe helps? Sure. What I would like it to have been in the article itself? Absolutely. But look, yes, people cherry pick things and they run with it to make their case. It's like it's not enough for you to have been upset by it. You have to it's like a cable subscription bundle. You gotta get ESPN Plus and Disney Plus and whatever else Disney owns and to sell it, right? It feels a little bit like that. And conversely, I think on the quote unquote anti SJWers, they took a few of these people who were handling it very poorly, maybe acting out of emotion or anger or hurt, and they ran with that. And I think what you do, and I think this is what kind of your point you're making with Twitter, is that it almost encourages you, or at least it often gets used, so that you highlight the worst of everything and then you apply it to everyone.
Sure.
And that's just not conducive for like open and honest conversation. So it seems like things are slowly settling down. There's still a few assholes out there who want to just keep carrying this torch, but I think they'll oftentimes find themselves on the outside looking in, and I've had some really great conversations with people on both sides, people from the gay community, people from the pro, Joe Bob community, and everyone in between. And what I'd like to hope is that going forward, people really try to realize that what is provided, and by the way, this includes Joe Bob himself, that what this platform is a platform that promotes unity. So if you're doing anything that's not promoting unity, you're flying in the face of what the last drive-in is supposed to be, and that's inclusive of Joe Bob himself.
All right.
So hopefully we can all learn and move on, because this fucking episode was so inspiring.
Yeah, well, before we move to that, this episode of what you're watching and listening to right now is about Joe Bob Briggs and the Last Drive-In in general, not just the incident we're talking about. Like we've gathered here in our virtual woods, and we're watching one of our favorite films. Yes, we're in big screen. We've gathered here in our virtual woods tonight with the campfire and the big. Literally the big screen behind us, watching one of our favorite 80s animated films, Rock and Rule, starring Debbie Harry and Iggy Pop and Lou Reed, Earth, Wind and Fire, the guy from Cheap Trick. I always forget his name. But Last Drive-In this week was one of the best episodes of the season. That was so much fun watching that, man. We had a great time. Uncle Lloyd Kaufman was on the show with his wife, Pat Kaufman, two film legends,
Yeah, Lloyd Kaufman, the founder and owner and creative force behind Troma films.
Yeah, sometimes star of, actor, even singer.
And Pat Kaufman is his wife, who was formerly the head of the New York Film Commission for many, many years. And what's hilarious is I don't know this for a fact, but I might have even missed this episode if not for all this kerfuffle. Hey, Sophie, that's Sophie making noise in the background. All this kerfuffle online, I might have just who knows what have come up, but I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I got to watch with you guys. And Lloyd Kaufman is a controversial figure. he's a controversial figure, but I feel like Troma has really led the charge about breaking down boundaries and taboos and giving opportunities to people who women and members of the gay community and minorities, have really given them an opportunity to have a place in the filmmaking table when they weren't previously given that.
Yeah, absolutely. Troma's always been a really inclusive company, man. Just a place for the freaks, for all the weirdos. I mean, it's a ton of fun. The Troma films, they don't have big name actors. The talent in them is often out of work and lesser known people. But they're always a blast, man. And then there is some talent too. They have some really, really great performances in some of these films. So this was one of them that definitely had some surprises. The premise with Troma's War was that kind of like in Lost, you had a plane crash. The survivors on this island
stole this from Troma's War.
Absolutely, it's practically shot for shot. But you had a group of survivors on an island that they assume no one's on when they encounter some soldiers who end up being really aggressive, and it turns out kind of like a who's who of terrorist groups from around the world have sent people to this island to train for this big American invasion funded by Cuba. And the survivors of this plane crash have to become their own sort of army and stop this horrible invasion and save America. And it's probably one of the more eclectic Dirty Dozen type groups I've ever seen, way more eclectic than the Dirty Dozen. I mean, you've got like a 76-year-old karate grandma. You've got the Vietnam vet who's, back in it, become a used car salesman, but now he's back in his element. The deaf woman that uses her kind of becomes like Daredevil at some point in the movie and is able to kill people by hearing them and shooting that direction. It was just a hell of a cast of strange, weird, fun people. Oh, and then just a guy who we were calling Agent Blowdart because he just happened to have a blowgun in his white suit that shot cyanide tipped
in his cane, right?
I thought he had it like strapped to his leg or something, and he kind of had to assemble it.
It was like a part of his cane.
Yeah, he just happens to fly with that just in case he needs it. But he was awesome. Yeah, British guy. And they're up against all kinds of horrible accents and teased hair and like a guy with a pig nose. Just the weirdest group of terrorists you've ever seen. But and a man who uses AIDS as a weapon. He's kind of a weird deformed guy. Oh yeah, that one was definitely crossing the line in a lot of ways, but it was unique. I'll give it that.
Now I will say that Lloyd sort of mentioned that this was his commentary on the silencing of the AIDS epidemic from the Reagan administration.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, Reagan was trying to sweep it under the rug, ignore it, kind of like how our current president is doing with with the virus. We've all been very
don't test
because
then they might come up positive.
Exactly. It's better if we just don't know. Yeah.
So it's just sort of his method of sort of bringing it to the forefront in his own very Troma-esque way. Unlike most Troma movies, there's no sort of supernatural element to this. This is almost as, for Troma standards, this was a pretty much straight war film.
Yeah, there were no mutants, there were no ghosts or monsters or aliens. It was just terrorists and good old heroes, fighting with lots and lots of guns, lots of machine guns. I mean, that machine gun sound effect went probably about 20% of the whole film. It was fun though. It's a fun, stupid violent movie, and just watching it on the last drive-in this week with Lloyd Kaufman and Pat Kaufman there to tell war stories. I mean, that was cool.
Anecdotes.
Yeah, that was
great. His time at Yale.
Yes.
Oliver Stone and the Skull Society.
Yeah,
whatever other Illuminati stuff he was into.
He probably not with Lloyd, but who knows? I mean,
maybe he had his own secret society, the Troma Society.
He does now, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But that was cool. We watched that on Shudder, which is our favorite horror subscription. But if you watched, you learned that another horror subscription is on the way. Troma's going to have their own soon, called Troma Now.
That's crazy.
And if they do anything like Shudder, where Shudder has all those, unique original TV shows, if Troma were to do something like that, we might have a pretty fun thing coming. And I'm sure it's going to be
awesome.
dirt cheap to subscribe to it. So yeah, Troma now's on the way.
It's kind of got to be. But like, you have all that library to draw from, and then you're right. It gives you an opportunity to create more content in that very Troma way.
Yeah,
maybe more Troma series. Maybe you could even lure back some alumni, like a James Gunn, to like do a series for them or
maybe
produce it. Like, how cool would that be?
When he finally just gives up on Disney altogether and just goes for it.
Yeah,
maybe
he's
that'd
got
be great.
fuck off money.
There you go. So that was awesome. And then the second film of the night was...
I was going to say, Troma's War was not the only film that they showed that day.
That was the unexpected treasure, man. Like, we had no idea what we were about to see. Even halfway through the film, we're still kind of like, okay, what's going on? Why is this so great? And then by the end, we were all just like amazed at what we just watched. This was a film called One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah. Now we made a promise the first time we recorded this episode that we would not do spoilers because this is a relatively new film, right?
That's right. We're not spoiling this one because you can, and we don't want to do that. But so
forgive us for the awkward tiptoeing around certain key moments in this movie because we want to talk about it and we want to recommend it. But of course, we're going to be very considerate to those of you who maybe haven't watched it yet. It is available on Shudder. It is available through that last drive-in episode is available on Shudder, so you can see it that way. I don't know if the movie by itself is available on Shudder. I didn't check. Now, do you think because it's part of Joe Bob's sort of shtick is that he's kind of like the out of touch redneck dude,
Right. Yeah.
Like, do you think that maybe some of his humor would land a bit better if they cut to Darcy more, or like other people kind of like rolling their eyes? Almost like in the same vein as like Michael Scott from The Office, right?
Oh, right.
Like he says some pretty tone-deaf things, but what makes it funny is that it's very evident that like everyone else thinks that what he's saying is kind of a out of touch or a rant or whatever, a non sequitur.
You need like a Jim to look at the camera. That's what you're saying. Like someone just be like, whatever, Joe Bob.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's a role that Darcy could play, and then that way you can kind of get that like sometimes he's invoking wisdom,
right?
But also sometimes he's just going on a bit long, and like let's all laugh with that joke rather than be unsure about what's going on.
It could be helpful. I think so.
So Matt, without spoiling anything from One Cut from the Dead, is it One Cut from the Dead or is it One Cut of the Dead?
I believe it's One Cut of the Dead.
Okay. So without spoiling One Cut of the Dead, what did you think about that film? Like what? Like take us like it's a film that has lots of twists and turns. So kind of track us through emotionally how you felt as you were watching this flick.
All right. Well, first you're kind of you're feeling like, okay, what they've done is kind of clever, but it's not like it has never been done before. But okay, whatever. If we're gonna, so okay, it's kind of cool. But then like, and this is interesting because like it's about halfway into the film, these credits start rolling, and you think the film is over. And you're like, all right.
Like it was a short.
It was a short episode. It was a short. And it's a pretty decent short. So you're like, all right, that's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, the acting was good. But then it turns into this whole other film, and you just kind of that you didn't expect at all. And God, I don't know. It's hard, man. This is tough, guys. It's hard to recommend a movie to you that we don't want to tell you anything about.
Right. But, for me, it just harkened back to like. So back when I was just I wasn't really that young. I was in my mid-late 20s already. But when I decided I wanted to make the plunge from working in retail management to film, I didn't know anything, I picked up a copy of Robert Rodriguez's Rebel Without a Crew, and that kind of inspired me. I bought a camera, and one of the very first things I made was with you, Matt. We made this tiny little short. I think it's maybe a minute. 60 seconds or something.
I think it's like 5 minutes.
Is it that long?
Yeah, it's about 5 minutes long.
It was for a filmmaking frenzy, which is something that Alamo Drafthouse used to support. These little 48 hours and 24-hour film fest, and like it was just a bunch of friends really, with a lot of coffee and a little bit of beer and no sleep and just slamming together these sort of creative ideas, and watching this film, which we should point out is a student film that was made for what, $28,000?
Yeah, something like that. Not much.
Not much, yeah. It reminded me of those days. Those days of doing Count to Three and Die, which is the short that you and I made together,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
my magnus opus, Absinthe Makes the Dead Live Longer, which
So what
just
you're
found.
saying is this is an independent zombie film.
Oh god, it's not even just independent, man. This is like gorilla of all gorillas of zombie films, and it just reminded me of those days when we didn't know anything about what we were doing. We just loved film, and we had a camera, and we figured out the rest as we went. Home Depot was our supply store, and your actors were your friends, and you did multiple roles, and I loved it. And that's just the first part of it. That was just me watching the first part.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is so clever. Yeah, I remember when I made films like this, long before I had a career, before I was producing, that's what I was doing. But then the second part starts. And I was really confused for like the first 5 minutes. And then as it progressively goes, man, so I didn't watch it that night. This is the One Cut from the Dead.
Yeah.
Because I was tired. And I'm in California where certain natural pharmaceuticals are allowed, and I passed out while eating chips.
Yes.
But I did watch it the next day, and I gotta be honest, man. When it got to the ending, I got a little tear in my eye. I legit watered up a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like the movie's so well done that it almost feels like a big studio's love letter to independent film, like something that like a big studio would make with like talented people who used to be indie filmmakers, but they've moved on. Like and it feels like that, this would be like their love letter to like their origins, because it's just so well made. It's hard to believe that this is like students made this.
Well,
but,
I agree with you from the perspective of how well made it is. But I don't think a studio could make this, man.
Well, no, I mean, we'll think of it like this: like the guys who made this, like 20 years into their career or something, or 10 years into their career. That's what I mean. I know what you're saying. There are limitations with working with big studios that they might not have been able to pull this off, and even some of that's addressed in the film, which is kind of funny. You just really one more time. What we're talking about is probably really confusing, but we're not going to tell you why. So, but I could see that, like that you, especially you with your career and the choices you've made. I'll bet you did tear up. I'll bet it really touched you, man. Because like this film is
seriously,
it's a very uplifting film. Like it's amazing, man. Yeah, it was weird. It was kind of a misfit almost for Joe Bob Briggs' show. Like he doesn't usually have stuff of this quality, but.
And it was confusing too, because you didn't really know why it belonged where it did, right? Especially coming off of Troma, which I guess if you look at the overall theme, it's like this independent spirit was really running through this episode, right?
Yeah.
Because Troma has maintained its independence by hook or crook, and this film was literally made by students. But there's a scene at the end of One Cut from the Dead. It's not the last scene, but it's right towards the end. It's the climax, certainly. And if you just took a still frame, if you just screenshotted this one image, and if you watch the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If that doesn't sum up fucking independent like filmmaking, I don't know what does.
I watched that thing, and if I was in theaters, I would have stood up and clapped. As it was, I was at home, and I weeped a little bit, and I was fucking re-inspired. I reordered a copy of Rebel Without a Crew, which, I've had about 3 copies, and I always end up sort of giving them out to people, but I want to go back and reread that, because I'll tell you, man, you start doing this for long enough. I'm sure maybe this is even the case with you with sculpting, right? Like you do this long enough and it becomes a job, it becomes a career. It's how you pay your rent, and it's really easy to lose touch of why you got into it in the first place, right? It's really easy, the longer you're in film, to forget that you love film. You become jaded, you become snide, you become whatever, defensive. Every once in a while, you got to remind yourself that you get to make movies, or you get to make art. And this film does that. At least it did that for me. I can't see anyone watching it and not being like, fuck it, when are we doing some art?
Yeah.
You know? Like, I'm not going to wait for Corona to be over. I got an iPhone in my apartment. There's some guys or some people who made a film using the rear view camera from their, I think it was like a what's the little car that people drive? The little Priuses? I think it was a Prius.
Oh, okay.
Did you hear about that?
No.
They made a whole film utilizing the rear view camera as their camera.
Why not? I guess, you probably can't make a lot of films that way, but yeah, if you got an idea, go for it.
But if you have an idea, go for it. Exactly. Like, watching this whole thing, like, it's a foreign film. You're gonna have to read 2 inches of script at the bottom, but like, it's gonna be real confusing in the beginning. But just go with it, man. And I guarantee you, if you're not working in the art field already, it will inspire you to do so. It was excellent.
Or maybe it won't. I mean, it was a stressful time for all of the characters in that film. They're not exactly having fun, so maybe it won't. So, like, there's some pretty bad stuff happens to some of those people, man. I mean, one guy he actually just starts crying. So yeah, but well, anyway, we're getting a little too close to it, but to the nature of the film. But like, I'm gonna recommend too, don't go out and look for One Cut of the Dead. If you don't already have a Shudder subscription, man, just get that Shudder subscription and watch this episode of The Last Drive-In, because even if you're not interested in the Troma parts, which, what is wrong with you if you're not? But like this, I can understand also not wanting to watch the movie with interruptions, because that's the whole thing of The Last Drive-In. But when you get up to close to the end of the film, Joe Bob kind of has, he goes to so many of these conventions. He meets so many people that describe themselves as aspiring filmmakers, and he has like a message for them at the end about why they shouldn't call themselves aspiring and just start calling themselves filmmakers. But like, which is, pretty cookie cutter concept, whatever. But like the way he tells it all out, and like the way they shot that live, and the things he says, I mean, you need to hear it. You need to hear what he's got to say, because it was, man, that was just as inspiring as the film. It was awesome.
It was. And you know what? I mentioned Rebel Without a Crew earlier, and there's a famous piece of the book where Robert Rodriguez, he also does it in his videos, 10-minute film school, where he says, you think you want to be a director? Wrong. You are a director. Go to the shop and get some business cards made, pass them out to your friends. Now you're a director. Now go make your film. Now go learn your craft. Now go figure out how to do it. You're already a director. You're already an artist. You're a producer. You're a writer. You're those things. If that's what your passion is, you are those things. Stop saying you're aspiring to be that, you want to be that, and go be it.
Yeah.
Because there is no time but now. I was 27 when I switched careers to work in film, right? There are people, Diamond Dallas Page didn't become a pro wrestler until he was in his 40s.
Nice.
People do change and do things late in life. Morgan Freeman didn't get to be popular until he was in his 40s. Harrison Ford was a carpenter before he became Han Solo. Like, don't wait anymore, because time will pass you by, and that opportunity that you have will slip by, and it'll just be one of those things you wished you would have done, or it was a dream that you had as a kid, and you'll be checking, you'll be doing whatever your job is, kind of making ends meet, but that opportunity to make yourself follow your passion will pass you by.
No, I don't agree that it'll pass you by, but you might find it's, as you get older, it can get a little more difficult. There's things young people can do, like, like young people can do stuff like live for $400 a month because they have 6 roommates. They can do stuff like pull all-nighters, go a whole weekend without sleep, where like, someone like close to our age, coming up on their 40s soon, might go like, it's weird. It's with me. It's like, I know I could pull an all-nighter, but I don't think I would feel, I think I've like, know too much about the art world that I'd just be like, it ain't worth it, like younger people are like naive enough to think that they should actually work and not sleep, and which is good, but you need that, like that's the thing, is just there's certain things that you don't have to be young to do, but you're gonna find that they're easier to do, or at least more, they're gonna feel more purposeful because you're younger. And so don't, but hold on, my point is just that the opportunities don't pass you by. They're always going to be there, and because that's what you were saying too, like DDP, Diamond Dallas Page being 40 when you get, they're always there. It's just you might as well start now. That's what it really is.
Yeah, you might as well start now, because it does get harder, and also it gets emotionally harder. It gets mentally harder.
Yeah.
You start getting the longer and the further away from your passion you get from a time perspective, it's going to be harder to convince yourself to get into it. So do yourself a favor. Stop aspiring to do something and do it. And don't worry about money. I mean, I know you got to pay bills, but you don't have to make a career of something right away. Keep the day job. Do this stuff on the weekends. Or, as we've said oftentimes, go get a day job in the field of the thing that you want to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is so
if
important.
you want to work in film and you can't get on set as a PA, or maybe you can't make a living as a PA, go work for like a gear house. Yeah. Go get on the desk of a producer. Go do something. Be involved. Go work at a video store. I don't know that they exist anymore, but like maybe there's a few.
Yeah,
there's that one Blockbuster up in like Seattle. Go work there.
Even if you can't currently get a job in the field, maybe there's a Subway restaurant or something right next to the studio that you want to
right
work
next
at.
door. Hell yeah.
I mean, just
think
do whatever
that.
it takes.
Dude, like I gotta be honest. I don't think this has ever been anything that I've consciously thought of before. But now, just like in this conversation, it's so obvious to me that meeting Mike Judge once a week for like a couple years, and getting to shoot the shit with him a little bit. I mean, never didn't want to be rude, but like just to get the opportunity to chat with him here and there, and he talking about taking his son to surf in our hometown down in Corpus and what have you.
That's the thing about
that was inspiring.
Being a coffee guy too, being a barista, is you are part bartender. So I found that like I mean it never felt like I was like trying to keep Mike Judge there talking to me, like it was just chat. People want to chat with you when you're a barista. So like I always loved when he would come in. We just talk about it. Because King of the Hill was still running back in those days too. So.
Yeah, it was, and it's so good.
Yeah, and he is one of those guys where you could totally be like, last night's episode was awesome, my favorite part, and he'll tell you more about it. It's great, man.
And not only that, but like, he was a normal guy.
Yeah, totally.
A normal dude from Texas, just like me. And so yeah, if you can't get a job in the field that you want to do, get a job next to it. Go work at a coffee shop if that's the only thing you can do. Go work in a coffee shop next to a studio. Do whatever you have to do.
Yeah, I will say, though, the coffee shop next to the studio needs to be the place where you're working while you're constantly trying to get a job in the studio. Like, don't
yes, absolutely. Yes.
Move there and be like, one of these days this will pay off. Like, you should be applying for everything else while you're there. But yeah.
The point is
just get
as
close as you can. Yeah.
Get as close as you can, and we have one life. There are certain philosophies that say that our whole purpose to exist is to follow our will, right? Follow our passions, follow our hearts, that poetry in your gut. Listen to that. Go create art. Go do it, because there's nothing holding you back, especially now, man.
Like, it's easy.
That little GL1 camera that I had back in like 12 years ago or whatever pales in comparison to my phone now, or an iPhone, or a Prius's rear view camera,
I don't.
So
I mean, yeah. As long as you remember to keep the dirt off those rear view cameras, they're pretty good quality.
Make sure you clean it.
Yeah, you gotta clean it.
Like I'm gonna clean my laptop
after it rains. But stuff. But that was a great
I
part
felt inspired
of the show. Yeah, Joe Bob. Yeah, he definitely got inside of Dave. Got him all inspired, man. Because a lot of what Dave was saying is the gist of what Joe Bob was saying. It was cool. I don't know. It was just cool to see him kind of, give that like, look, I talked to a lot of y'all, and this is what you tell me, and I want to. So now I'm going to tell you my version of it. And it was cool to hear that. And Darcy, the male girl. She kind of chimed in too, because she goes to just as many conventions, talks to just as many people, and so it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to hear what they had to say.
Super cool.
Yeah.
and we got to see some of the people backstage working as Joe Bob sort of walks through the sets to talk.
Yeah, it was neat.
And a friend of the show, Liz Martin, was doing makeup in the background on Darcy when Joe Bob was walking around. So shout out to Liz, and good Texas filmmakers out there working.
Yeah.
And we support them, and we support the idea of following your passion, and for us to do it collectively as a community that loves one another and is kind to one another, even when we fight sometimes. Like, at the end of the day, we're all in this together. Humans just figuring it out, looking for love, man.
Sure thing.
And so I hope that's the come away that everyone had from it. We like to do a ratings here on the Grindhaus podcast, but did I tell you that I just drove by Kevin Smith the other day?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I almost stopped and asked him to just to tell him about our Tusk rating, but I decided that was inappropriate, so I did not. But
just stop the car. Kevin Smith, I have a podcast and we have a rating and we use Tusks because we like your movie Tusk. Yeah, he would feel totally safe in that.
Yeah, not creepy at all. But so what Tusk rating would you give the Troma's War?
Okay, Troma's War, I am gonna say, man, it's like a 3. Like that's a really good Troma film. Like, it's totally weird, and the soundtrack was great, and the cast was awesome. It was stupid as hell, but I had a great time. So yeah, 3 out of 5.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good rating. I'm gonna give it a 2. Watchable, but I like the monster stuff, man. And I did kind of feel like that. I mean, there was lots of blood, but like I kind of missed a little bit of that heightened gore that you get normally from a Troma film. A dude dropping weights on a guy's head and watching a watermelon explode.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff like that. So 2, it's watchable. Dave recommends watch it, but 2 Tusk. Now, what do you rank One Cut for the Dead? One Cut of the Dead.
5 out of 5.
One Cut of the Dead.
5 out of 5. I mean, that was on the next level, man. That was that. I don't know how they pulled that off. I mean, what the inspiration was for it. Like, I have to imagine that it just was so realistic in my mind. I mean, it wasn't completely real. It was like, it was funny, almost like a comedy, kind of slapstick at moments, but like that must have been based. It must have been based on a real life story, something that happened to them or something, because it was just like, it felt like a real, like it was cool. Yeah, it was just it didn't have any stupid plot holes or anything. It was perfect. I thought
smart.
So yeah, 5 out of 5.
Creative. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do something unheralded on this show. I'm going to break our Tusk rating and give it 6 Tusk. 6 out of 5 Tusk.
You shouldn't
for
be
One
doing
Cut
that,
of the Dead.
man. That's what do you?
I'm going to do it.
Our
I
Tusk
can't be
rating
stopped,
is,
man.
what can it even mean
This movie
now?
was so fucking good. So fucking good. Watch it. It's awesome.
Watch it.
6 stars. 6 Tusk.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm gonna stop shouting into the microphone now. Should we go? Speaking of community, should we answer a few of our mailbag questions?
Yeah, I think we could get some time for 2 or 3 of those. What do you say?
Questions from Macaret.
Edward Guadalupe Steegman asks, are practical effects lost art, or is CGI the natural evolution of special effects?
I think hey, what's up, Ed? First off, friend of mine. I think it's going to be both. We got things like setting, that's, special effects like car accidents, spaceships, all kinds of stuff, like the bigger things that you don't even notice when CGI is happening, and it just makes the options so much more. But then, there's things like I think something that we've been experiencing a lot with like the Marvel films and stuff, where like really cool prosthetics and puppetry could just make it so much more believable, but they just go and like CGI the clothes, CGI the face, and it's it's okay. It's kind of cool sometimes. Sometimes it works really well. I mean, Thanos looked great. Sure. I think Thanos, if he was a guy in like a rubbery plastic suit, that wouldn't have been so good. But it's sometimes I think practical effects are necessary. You need something to look more organic, something to be there in the room with the actors, and then sometimes CGI is cool too.
And also, I have to think back to this time when I was sort of dabbling in painting, and I was painting on cardboard, mostly because that's just kind of what I had available to me. And I remember I showed you something, and you were like, "That's cool, man. Like, so what's behind the cardboard? Like, what's the meaning behind it? You know?" And I sort of sheepishly just said, "Well, it's just what I have." And you're like, "Oh, well, you should really think about using your medium to sort of be part of the art, you know, and like not just paint on a surface, but have the surface be part of the presentation."
Oh right, yeah, because I thought you were using cardboard like how like a homeless person makes signs. You know, I thought you had like a statement there. You know, I was
Right.
trying really hard to figure it out, and you're like, no,
Yeah.
I get that for free. So
Yeah,
I
right.
paint
Which
on
is
it.
okay too. Which is okay too. But the big takeaway from that is like use your medium to the fullest.
Yeah.
And I feel like CGI has a place, but I like you said with the Marvel films, I think it gets overused. So use your CGI when necessary. You know, there's a great YouTube channel called Fomento that just recently did a breakdown between Terminator 2 and Terminator Dark Fate. If you want to sort of see a really well thought out breakdown on when and why practical effects make an action scene that much stronger and rooted in reality, it's a great video to watch. I have nothing wrong with CGI. It has its place.
Use it when needed. Use it with intent and purpose, and don't just sort of use it as a catch-all. I think your film will be that much stronger for it.
John Waldrop asks, if you had to choose the form of the Destructor, what form would you choose for Gozer to take?
Oh,
Gonzo.
this is Ghostbusters reference.
Ghostbusters reference.
Yes, Dan Aykroyd accidentally chose the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and he came and wrecked the city. So there you are, Dave. You're on the rooftop, and the god has told you choose the form of your destroyer.
Yes.
And what comes to mind? What are you gonna
Godzilla.
get killed by? Okay, yeah. Godzilla has destroyed many cities, and you'd like to be, if you have to go, you wouldn't mind being in one of those
if
cities.
I've got to go,
if you gotta go.
Yeah, if I gotta go, I'd rather go with something in a memorable way, and I feel like being part of Godzilla, and I'm talking like King of the Monsters Godzilla. You know, like I thought about the original Godzilla, like dude in a rubber outfit, which would be cool too.
Oh.
And I'm on the fence actually, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with the current Godzilla, the really, really tall Godzilla, because I think from my rooftop vantage point, I'll be able to enjoy it a lot more if I get the real big one, you know, and it'd be pretty killer. If that's the way I got to go, I want to go by Godzilla.
Well, I think my only problem with that is, while it would be really cool to be in a city when Godzilla is is attacking it and stuff, you might not even get to see Godzilla, because mostly what happens in Godzilla attacking cities is people are just kind of running in the streets.
Sure.
And if it's a big city with a big metropolitan downtown, you're basically just going to be seeing other people running in fear with tall buildings around you. You'll hear Godzilla, you'll hear a lot of them, but you might not see much of them, and then maybe some debris
Even from
just
my
might
rooftop?
smash you. Okay, so you've planned out a good seat for this. Okay?
Well, we're on the rooftop,
Yeah.
right? The God's telling us we're on this rooftop here. That's where Ghostbusters
right.
were.
Okay, yeah, good point. All right, yeah, so yeah, that would be kind of cool. Hopefully, he destroys your building last, so you get to watch a lot of cool destruction, and hopefully, it's not too disturbing with all the suffering it causes. I think also I would like to see a big show. I think I'm gonna go
The big show, like the wrestler.
No, like a big thing that you only get to see once, because then it's over. I think I'm gonna go with another cinematic reference, and that's was that Gus Van Zant's? Lars von Trier's Melancholia, in which a planet crashes into Earth and just destroys both bodies. But yeah, I think that would be a hell of a show.
It's pretty
just
epic.
Watching this cosmic body just come closer and closer and closer until we all just get smashed. Now I did think about this because there's one problem with that is the whole half of the planet doesn't get to see it. If you're like if it's hitting Australia and you're in Alaska, it's going to be hard for you to. So I think I might try to expand it to 2 melancholias at the same time. So the planet kind of gets
pendulum.
Yeah. So the planet just kind of gets smashed, like kind of sandwiched between 2 larger planets. I think that's my form of the Destructor is two
All right.
planets squishing ours at the same time. I think that would
Boom
be.
goes the dynamite.
Yeah, if I gotta go, I would go like that.
All right, fair enough. Next question.
Anthony Petrie asks, which special effects in film from the 80s and 90s have truly stood the test of time?
All right.
Perfect. Dustin
Sweet.
Rhodes.
Yes.
My man.
A legend.
Son of a plumber. Also a Texas legend.
Heck yeah. Wrestling in the woods. Can't beat that. All right. I think it might be kind of obvious to listeners of our show, but like American Werewolf in London, the transformation.
Yeah,
I mean, that
that's
still
amazing.
is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It looks, it makes turning into a werewolf look so painful, and you just don't. I mean, God, the way his foot stretches, the way he's screaming the whole time. That was wicked stuff. And when that wolf snout comes out of his mouth, it was like, you don't want to be a werewolf in that film. That was not fun.
It definitely looks like puberty turned up to 100,000.
Yeah. So that, watching that now, you're still cringing and just feeling that pain, and it's so believable. It looks so real. Like there's no kind of corny 80s, not happening. That holds up. That was awesome.
I'm going to go, I have two. I don't think you could go wrong with, not They Live. I don't think you can go wrong with The Thing. The effects in The Thing. Like, yes, do they look dated? Can you tell that they're of another time? Yeah, but they still hold up. They still draw you into that world that they're creating.
I think they look real, like totally real. I think that's there's no break
gruesome
from,
and creepy. Yeah, it doesn't break your disbelief.
Yeah.
But also, just because I mentioned it earlier, Terminator 2.
Yeah,
Because of how selective they were with their effects, they still work. That scene where he the T-1000 is disguising himself as part of the floor, and then all of a sudden you just see the floor, that checkered floor sort of come together, and you realize he's been masquerading as it. It's great.
Yeah.
Just solid effects. Really, really smart usage of them. And I think that smart usage of them is really what helps have it sort of hold the test of time.
Yeah, it's a great
All right.
choice.
Next question.
Jessica asks, do IMDb peer ratings destroy potential views for indie film in that they always seem to be rated quite low despite being good? I.e., an example being films like The Ritual, which only received a rating of 6 out of 10, even though it was something new and fresh, which people always scream for.
I don't know. For independent films, I might say that Rotten Tomatoes does more damage than IMDb.
You think so?
Yeah, but I don't know. I think a lot of people know that even when it comes to those kind of film ratings where it's what do you call that? Like the difference between a critic and it's like a mob rating, I guess you might call it, where it's the whole internet's voting and stuff. I think people still know that we all have our own tastes. I can't think of a time when I wanted to see a film and then I saw a rating and went, oh, I better not. If I'm interested, I'll just watch it.
Yeah, I think those sites. I mean, look, I don't give a lot of value to IMDb ratings at all because I've just seen them fabricated so many times, and also even Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of film critics are really not good at their jobs, in my opinion.
Right.
A lot of people have gotten a lot of clout from being negative and shitting on other people's artistic endeavors. So, maybe that they negatively impact indie films. But that's why it's incumbent upon you to use reputable sites, or at least sites that have similar taste to you, so that you feel like their recommendation is a valid one. And BloodyDisgusting.com is a great example of that. Brad Miska, John Squires, those guys are so good at what they do that generally speaking, if they recommend something, I think it's worth checking out. And then also have a community of peers that like movies similar to you. And then that way you're not reliant on what you read on the interwebs. You can just go to the source of some good people who got a good taste.
Right on.
So don't bother with those things. Moving on.
Leah Martin Brown asks, what do you think about the upcoming remake of Little Shop of Horrors? Who would you cast?
Oh, that's a good question.
Are they doing a musical again? Is it?
I
It's
guess
going to
so.
be I didn't even know it was
hadn't heard
coming.
about it, but
yeah. Wow, another Little Shop
That's why
of
we have
Horrors.
community.
Okay.
Learn new things.
Shit, I don't know. It's probably going to be. I mean, honestly, man, I figure it's probably going to be about as cool as that Fox remake of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
No,
Remember
give
that?
it some credit. We don't. Yeah, that was made for TV movie.
But
let's assume that's good attention. Let's think positive.
These days, they just go for those American Idol people and like throw them in there.
No, that's a broad miscategorization.
You don't think it's going to happen like that?
No, listen. I mean, there have been great musicals. Like aside from Cats, Les Miserables was great. The Greatest Show on Earth. What was it? Greatest Showman? Whatever that movie with Hugh Jackman was. Into the Woods. There's been some great musicals that have come out lately. So
who would you like to see?
Let's think positive.
Who would you like to see?
All right. Well, we got to first start with the crazy doctor, right? And
the dentist? You mean
the dentist? Sorry, yeah, the dentist.
Yeah,
Steve Martin played him. Jack Nicholson played him.
Yeah.
Because remember, the Rick Moranis version is a remake.
That's right.
Original version had Jack Nicholson. So I'm gonna go with Johnny Depp. I think Johnny Depp has proven that he's got some vocal chops, and he can certainly play zany well. And I think that he needs a little bit of a comeback vehicle, and I think that he would really sink his teeth into this. Pun fully intended.
There you
Playing
go.
the dentist.
I could see that. Let's see. I guess for the lead role, the Rick Moranis role, there was a show called Daybreakers that was out on Netflix, kind of a post-apocalyptic show, and the lead in that was pretty good. I don't know his name, but if he can sing, maybe him.
What do you think about Justin Long? Is he too old now?
Yeah, I think so. Well, Rick Moranis, he kind of portrayed as like a mid-30s in the movie. I don't know if he was, but it kind of felt like that, so that might work. Who could be the plant, though? That's the big one, yeah. The singer of Alabama Shakes, man, that's a hell of a voice and a rocking sound.
All right.
She could be Audrey, too. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. But hey, I got an even better suggestion.
What you got?
Because the person who asked this question, Leah Martin Brown, is quite the accomplished singer herself, lead singer of the band Evil Walks. So why doesn't Leah play Audrey too?
Wow.
Breakout star. She's got a killer like Janis Joplin-esque voice. Have you ever heard Leah sing?
No, I have not heard her band or her sing.
I'll send it to you, man. You'll dig it, man. It's
Thanks.
good.
All right, cool, yeah.
Good old rock and roll. So that's our choice, Leah. You play Audrey too, and we're gonna have high hopes for it. And fingers crossed.
Jessica also asks, why do people always scream for new ideas and hate the idea of Hollywood reboots, yet refuse to take a chance on indie cinema, instead opting to pay to see more pre-sold franchises like Marvel and Star Wars?
Yeah, people do that. they want something that's a safe bet, but they somehow want it to be something new also. Dude, that is I don't know, but if you could figure out how to get around that and get people to stop doing that with some kind of movie idea or something you've got, that whoever does that will be very successful.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think part of it's going to the movies is expensive. You know, we've talked about this a bunch of times. You know, you spend $18 on a ticket here in Los Angeles, so if there's two of you going, it's $36. Parking is guaranteed to be probably around $6.
Yeah.
Right? You know,
I feel like even like my time, like that's like I'm good. Like there's movies I've been interested in that I just haven't gone to see because they're like 3.5 hours long, and I'm just going, nah, no, that's too much of my time.
One of the things that could really help would be, I think that movie tickets should be sold at scale. You know, like sure, $18 for your big blockbuster, fine, but like some little indie darling, how about $10?
I mean, if they could do that, yeah, you see that kind of thing going on in video games. Like indie releases are cheaper.
Yeah,
that's something like that could work. But yeah, you're right. It is expensive. It's an investment in money, an investment in time. And you only have so many opportunities to, so you have to pick the right movie, and then you end up in the wrong one, and you're like, crap, what a waste. But I don't know. As far as like why people keep demanding new things but the same things, like what I think that's just that's a hard formula to create, and I think I don't know, it might not even be, it might just be that people know that like if you can convince someone that, hey, this is something new but familiar but new in a way that you're going to like it, you're going to sell more tickets to that kind of thing. So people keep trying to do that, and it's just a hard thing to do, so that's why the reviews are so bad,
And I think also like people, it's a loud world. This is a loud world. We're one of a billion film podcast out there. You know, you have a lot of options on what you ingest as far as media is concerned, and sometimes those indie films just don't have the reach and the voice to get above the noise, to get above the 50 fucking Marvel films that come out a year. And so, like, this is why platforms like Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In, and hopefully us on a smaller scale, and you know, other platforms like that, bloodydisgusting.com, Shudder. That's why these things are so important, because if not for a show like The Last Drive-In and for Shudder, I would not have seen One Cut for the Dead.
Yeah,
One Cut of the Dead.
Even have heard of it.
Or even have heard of it.
Yeah.
Would never. I didn't.
No
I
idea
hadn't
what
heard
he
of
was
it.
talking about. Yeah.
So, so you know, like, unfortunately, the reality of it is there's so much noise in the world, and people are unsatisfied by these big blockbusters a lot of the time. It's like fast food. It serves the purpose. You might even really enjoy it in the moment, but you just kind of get left feeling with that unsatisfied gut feeling.
Right.
And you know, but it's convenient and it's there, and you see it a billion times, the giant signs poking out high above everyone. And so that's why you're drawn to it. But there is great indie out there. Support indie film. It's so important, because the indie film makers of today are the big blockbuster makers of tomorrow. And every once in a while, you get someone, I've mentioned him twice before, why not 3 times? You get a James Gunn sneak in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he makes something really, really cool and unique with, like, Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think people want it. I just think they don't know where to find it. And so it's up to us to highlight and showcase those indie films so that they get the much-deserved attention that they need.
Absolutely. Well, do we have any more questions or anything else we need to get to?
We don't have any more questions. I want to thank everyone for listening. I want to thank, I want to thank Shudder for all the great content that they provide for us. I want to thank Joe Bob Briggs for all the great indie films he brings to our attention. I want to thank the people on Twitter who got angry, because your voice matters too. We'll do a little bit better finding a way to express it, but your voice matters all the same. You don't have to have a famous TV show to have a valid voice. And I think that as I look around this very cool virtual environment, we should thank Big Screen.
Yeah, Big Screen is awesome. We still haven't read the end user license agreement, and we still not quite sure if we're allowed to do this. But Dave said that he did. Yeah, Dave said that they retweeted us recently, so we'll just kind of pretend that's an approval for now. But man, if you have VR and you haven't tried Big Screen yet, check it out. This is so much fun. Like, this is not all you can do with it. It's not just like hanging out in the woods with your friend watching a movie. You can,
which is dope, though.
You can just go hang out in the lobby and talk film with other people and throw popcorn at each other and just like make jokes. And you can go to other people's, people have open rooms where they're watching 3D movies or watching wrestling clips or whatever. And you can go in and meet people and talk with them. It's weird. It's like this big, almost like a big hotel or something full of rooms you could just visit and meet people and watch things. Some of them, as Dave found out, not appropriate for children.
That's right.
But
Be
for the
careful of
most
those.
part, it's pretty safe and it's pretty fun.
But it does have child parental controls. So
yes.
if you got a kid watching, if you don't want to see the NSFW content, which is rare anyhow, there are parental controls. So, but like, we're in this quarantine time, and a lot of us, especially us film geeks, like, we miss going to the movies. I miss going to the New Beverly so much.
Yeah.
It's owned by Quentin Tarantino. They always show everything in 35 millimeter. It's walking distance from my house. I miss that really, really badly. But you know what? I'm making the most of it, and apps like Big Screen really allow us to get that communal filmmaking or film watching experience from the safety of our home until things get a little bit more safe for us to go out.
Yeah, and one of the coolest things, though, is Big Screen is free. It's totally free to use. But if you want to, you can buy tickets to movies that they show, and that is something that I found is really cool. They have some great stuff showing, and like, one of the things I don't like is going to the movies watching 3D movies. I don't like putting on the glasses. I get that headache, and
these don't give me a headache.
Yeah, the 3D movies in Big Screen, you're watching them through your VR headset, so it's like true stereoscopic, so you don't get that headache, and they're like really high quality streams, and it's just a few bucks. So that's a really cool thing you can do too. It's just like, It's a really cool program, and so we've been having a lot of fun using it. And so if you haven't tried it yet, check it out.
Yeah, and I know it sounds like we're probably doing an ad or something, but they don't actually know we're doing this.
Yeah.
outside of that retreat, they know now.
Yeah.
I guess
it probably sounds like
but
we're trying to garner their favor just in case.
Right.
I mean,
we do want some swag.
Not. Like, that's what we do with this podcast. We recommend cool shit to people who like movies.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We talk about stuff we love.
Yeah, if we just use this and didn't recommend it, we'd be doing you a disservice. So check it out.
Yeah. So if you have the luxury of having VR glasses of any sort, look online to see what VR glasses big screen supports. But if you do have any of the Oculuses and you kind of miss that experience of seeing a movie with others, look into it because it's very cool. It's in its beta stage right now, so it's still growing and getting better. And we're having a good time doing this. We're having a good time bringing this show to you from this sort of virtual environment.
Yeah, it's any headset really. It's on Oculus Go, Oculus Quest, Oculus Rift. If you got HTC Vive, if you Steam VR, Viveport,
Steampunk.
like all of the VR things have it. It's kind of out there. So yeah, man, look into it.
So thank you, Big Screen, for knowingly or unknowingly letting us use your environment to share our love of cinema and film and indie filmmaking and art in general, because that's what we do it for. We just do it because we love it, and we hope you guys enjoy it and that we've brought you something that has made your day a little bit more enjoyable, maybe opened your eyes to a few things you weren't quite aware of. And again, can't recommend enough, One Cut of the Dead is the movie to see this week. Get yourself some popcorn and wine and whatever else and treat yourself to a really amazing experience.
One Cut of the Dead, Troma's War, Shudder, Last Drive-In.
Old WWF videos if you're watching us on YouTube.
Well, I think that's enough show for today. So I think Dave and I are going to go ahead and get back to our movie in the woods, which has turned into, I think it's WrestleMania 7. I don't know. But yeah, I see Jake the Snake up there talking mad shit. So let's see what he has to say. But you guys enjoy yourselves. Thanks for checking out. Thanks for checking out the Grindhaus podcast, tuning in, all that stuff.
And until next time, adios.
You're listening to the Grindhaus podcast on the We Keep Forgetting to Organize an Outro network. Please follow us on Instagram at Grindhaus Podcast and listen to us every Monday on iTunes, SoundCloud, and now on Spotify.